Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 8th episode of your new favorite internet show, Visioncon Live. I'm your host, Zach Wilson, but you didn't come here to see me today. You came to see the man of the hour. He voices Iruka from Naruto, Kon from Bleach, Axel from the Kingdom Hearts series, just to name a few. A man I look up to so much it hurts my neck. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome the man, the myth, the legend, Quinton Flynn. Quinton, how you doing today?
What? Thank you. I'm doing very well, Zach. That's a fantastic intro. I'm glad it's been recorded.
It's yeah, we were recording, and yeah, it's
Yeah.
well deserved. Thank you so much for being on the show, Quinton.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Well, Quinton, I just wanted to start us off kind of similar to how I start all of these. I want to know the origin story of Quinton Flynn. Now, we all know that you are one of the most regarded and recognized voice actors, whatever verb, adjective, noun you want to use. But I kind of want to know, where did it all begin? Is this the path you wanted to kind of choose when, you were growing up? Or were there some variables in that led you to where you are today?
Well, I started doing impressions as young as the age of 8.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, with a friend of mine in school, Billy Russ, and he and I, for whatever reason, got together at that age, and we just write down lists of impressions, and we would do impressions of impressionists' impressions. So watching TV back then, you had The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, The Dinah Shore Show, Mike Douglas Show, Merv Griffin, and this all predates Saturday Night Live, which would also become an influence on me. But we would watch guys like Rich Little, Frank Gorshin, Fred Travalena, and who am I leaving out? John Biner. Yeah, those are the major 4. And also I listened to him on LPs. John Biner in particular. There was a parody of The First Family, which was from the 60s, so it would have been the Kennedys. And these guys, just seeing them on TV and the magic that they would wield by doing impressions, for me was some kind of magic. And I just did it, I was a fine artist. I used to draw and illustrate and copy that way. And then suddenly I found myself doing, impressions of other people like the Beatles. So, Paul McCartney of the Beatles, that's great stuff. And John Lennon is a bit more nasally, but he's from Liverpool too. George Harrison, more peaceful, maybe an adenoidal in the back of the throat there. And Ringo, we all know, says peace and love, peace and love. No more autographs.
It's incredible to be able to do that just so seamlessly. But anyway, continue.
Oh, thanks. And Johnny Carson was the Tonight Show host back then. Big fan of his. So I was 8 years old doing this voice. And then much later, of course, it'd be Jay Leno. Yeah, crunch him. We'll make more. And Jimmy Fallon. Oh my God, you're wonderful, Zach. It's just your show. It's it's the best. We should do. You should be doing my show. You should be hosting my show. And I'm just a fan. So
even the stutter you got down.
That because and the laugh.
It's all like typical him. So I was happy that you included it. But anyway, so you did impressions, all kind of growing up, and you were obviously well known for that. But what was the thing that kind of made you choose, hey, I want to get into acting, and then later voice acting, music, kind of what was the catalyst that made you pick that versus maybe a more traditional kind of blue collar 9 to 5 thing?
Well, it just came naturally. Loved music, loved singing, just gravitated toward acting. I don't know where it came from other than it was ingrained in me and it was kind of what I was meant to do. I had some steady jobs, but once I got into high school, that's when I really segued into doing theater. And in 4 years, I performed in 11 of 12 plays. I had many leads. And I also, for the one play, did some extra work behind the scenes, some grip work, they might call it, on a set, And then I just knew I wanted to be in entertainment and show business as an all-rounder. I had a rock band my senior year of high school, so that was, manifesting a rock and roll dream because I grew up in the rock and roll capital and listened to rock and roll radio and just loved and admired everyone who did that. So a combination of the Beatles, Jerry Lewis, Steve Martin, Saturday Night Live, of course. Wanted to do that kind of stuff, which is really, character variety, kind of all around entertainment.
Mhm.
And when I went to university, I just decided to study radio, TV, film, and theater. I did so and ended up doing a radio show, doing a sketch comedy show, and then getting an internship where I eventually was hosting the first alternative video music program that predated MTV's 120 Minutes. So, with that, plus hands on work with videos, shooting, editing, producing, I learned a lot. And it was inevitable that once I got out of college, I would go to either New York, Chicago, or Los Angeles because they didn't have what I was looking for in Cleveland, even though it was a great market for radio and TV. Everybody had what they needed. So I had to hit the road. Do you hear the helicopters?
I heard a little bit of humming, but not too much.
Yeah, they're coming for me.
They're
So
coming for you.
they can't really see me.
Sure.
I have a special helipad up top. It was installed, and I sent them away. I said, wrong day, wrong day.
Wrong.
Today's interview day.
Today's Visioncon live day. Well, I mean, I'd expect nothing less of Quinton Flynn. But okay, so you were kind of a man of many talents. You touched on a few that I kind of want to explore before we get into voice acting itself.
Sure.
So you mentioned music, Saturday Night Live, sketch comedy, hosting things. I first want to talk about you do your own music as well, correct?
I do. Yeah, I'm a singer-songwriter. I fronted a lot of bands since high school, during college, post-college, out here in LA on the Sunset Strip. Played the Whiskey, the Roxy, the Troubadour, all these legendary places that I grew up reading about in Rolling Stone magazine. And I was just like, I can't believe I'm doing this, And with each step and with each new gig, it was something else. I had a lot of fun with my pal Robbie Rist. We had a musical comedic duo called the Snosberries. And one of our highlights was actually opening up for Nancy Sinatra,
Really?
the late Frank Sinatra's daughter,
Oh
who
my.
had a hit in the 60s called These Boots Were Made for Walking. And that's just what they'll do. One of these days, these boots, Zach, are going to walk all over you. Yeah.
It's funny you mentioned Robbie Rist because when I interviewed him for Virtual VisionCon, those of you who tuned in for that, he mentioned your guys' kind of comedic music duo. So I'm glad you brought.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was a great guy, and of course, had nothing but nice things to say about you. Which can anybody blame him? But
I hope not. Yeah, he's a sweetheart.
oh my gosh, the sweetest. But you did mention also Saturday Night Live, and a lot of you don't know this, and I certainly didn't. But you actually tested for Saturday Night Live, didn't you?
I did.
Okay.
I was in a sketch comedy group, and at the beginning of this class, the teacher, Ann Beats, who was an Emmy Award winning writer for the show on the first 5 seasons, said, anybody have any goals here? Any idea what they want to do? I said, yeah, I want to be on Saturday Night Live. She was like, well, we'll see about that. And lo and behold, we put together a killer sketch comedy show, and I had a lead, and she was willing to, vet me, as it were. And I sent in a demo, and they accepted it. And then they flew me to New York, and suddenly I'm at Stand Up New York, along with all these other hopefuls. And they said, you're going to go up in front of this packed house. They're not going to know you're here to audition. They just think they're seeing a comedy show. I'm like, oh man, that's pressure.
Yeah.
Because the stuff we had was tailored for the TV, for the on-camera audition. So I had to kind of improvise within my means. And I was waiting to find out when I was going up. And 10 minutes before showtime, they finally came to us with the list, and they said, okay, number 1, Quinton Flynn. I went, yeah. And I was like, well, here's doing it.
Here's doing it.
And yeah, and so I went up, and I did my act, and in the back I could see Lorne Michaels and Tina Fey,
Oh my God.
Marcy Klein, and oh gosh, Isla Cohen, Mike Shoemaker. And I was nervous, but I just rocked it. I did a little Owen Wilson, which is kind of fun, It's great doing Owen. And I did some other original characters. I did comic book guy that nobody really knows, but he knows everything about comics. Like what's behind you is, I see Bleach there. No, Naruto, is that it? No, it's Naruto. Yeah, of course, Naruto is great because there's that guy in there, Iruka Sensei, who Quinton Flynn plays. I'm Iruka Sensei. If you're good, I'll get you some ramen. And then of course there's Cone from Bleach. I'm Cone. What are you doing? I just want to get inside your. So that ended up leading to testing the next day at Studio 8H at 30 Rockefeller Plaza, which was a huge thrill. And I popped in there and I was nervous as all get out, but just kept doing what I do, suiting up, showing up, opening up my mouth. Sometimes the words come out, as you can tell, and sometimes they get stuck. But I walked in there and went to what they call home base, which is where all the guests, the guest hosts stand at the opening of the show. Yeah. And many times if you go back into the 70s and see Andy Kaufman, when he was standing on the stage with the red draped curtain behind him, when he was doing his very obscure and strange act, his Mighty Mouse, he'd be singing to the Mighty Mouse record, or I should say he would actually be lip syncing to it. Mm-hmm. That was where I auditioned. And Richard Pryor was on that stage, and Steve Martin, and so many more. But I was waiting, and the cameraman came up to me and he started fitting me with a lavalier, and he said, "Don't worry, everything's going to be fine. You'll notice off in the distance to your left, the whole table in the shadows with Lauren and Tina and everyone. Pay no attention. And they're not going to laugh, so don't expect it. Just go through your act. Just play to the camera. Have a good time. Just relax. Everything will be fine. You need anything?" I was like maybe an audience, because I could look up and see the open seats in the stands. And no, so that's it. And I rocked it. Had a lot of fun. I did a few new things. Original characters, impressions, and then then it was a waiting game. Ultimately, though, that season they ended up going with Finesse Mitchell, who lasted 3 seasons, and Kenan Thompson, who's been on for years.
Yeah.
But it was a great thrill for me and my pal David Kessler, who was a co-writer who came with me, and then I went back to Anne and told her what happened, and she said, "I told you should have waited a year. You're too much like Jimmy." Jimmy Fallon. Oh my God.
I mean, is that something that you'd ever want to kind of, maybe try out for again? Or do you think that's just kind of came and went?
It's a good question. I have no idea what the future holds. Sure. I would love to work with Lorne Michaels. I've loved that show and what he's done with it over the years, and all of the offshoots he's done, the way he produces. There's an edge to the show. Sure, it's had its ups and downs, but it's always unpredictable. It's live. I love live. Even this, it's live and happening. I don't know what people are doing, but we're doing it together. And so yeah, you never know. I mean, I've thought of doing some more online stuff, and if I'm brought to his attention, I should say, then perhaps I would be open to it.
Absolutely. I mean, I think you'd be a killer guest for Saturday Night Live, and no disrespect to Kenan Thompson or anything like that at all.
Yeah.
But I do want to, next week I want to talk about, so was it kind of a seamless transition between, okay, so you've done music, acting, of course impressions, but then we get into voice acting, video games, anime, cartoons, the whole shebang. Was that kind of just a seamless transition, one thing after another, or were any of them a little bit more difficult than the other?
Well, good question. The voiceover kind of came from me being in a place out here when I was doing a number of things. I was in a sketch comedy group. I had a band. I had a job. I had done stand-in work for Paul Rubin, who was Pee Wee Herman, Luke Perry, the late Luke Perry. They were both in the movie Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And, I'd done some other bits and bobs. And suddenly my girlfriend at the time said, you took that great voiceover workshop with Bob Bergen and you did so well. Why don't you just focus on one thing and nail it? And then you can do other things later on. I said, that sounds like a good idea. So I started with that, put together a demo, ended up fortunately lucking out and getting an agent with a lot of work, and then just started auditioning. And what happened first were commercials for radio, promos for the CBS network, like coming up next on the Drew Carey Show. And then suddenly I was doing Timon on Around the World with Timon and Pumbaa, replacing Nathan Lane. And then I was the Human Torch, Flame On, for the Fantastic Four. And then I was Johnny Quest and the Real Adventures of Johnny Quest. Dad, where's Bandit? We got to go find Haji. And it would just seem like there was a steady stream at that point. And then, multiple commercials that were really hot back in the day, mostly for radio, some for TV. Had a Super Bowl ad that was really cool, where I played a slim pickings kind of bird. He was a pigeon who was flying around the air and looked like he was going to dump on a car for Nissan, I think. Woohoo! And then suddenly this new world of gaming came about. And the first game I voiced was from Monkey Island, in which I played a character named Mr. Fossey. And then it went on from there. I played Spider-Man in Marvel's Ultimate Alliance, Venom in Friend or Foe. I even played Gollum and Merry in a Lord of the Rings game. I was in a Minority Report, and then slowly but surely it segued into Raiden in Metal Gear Solid 2. And I was, just like this. There was a visual of two people. Colonel, I'm stuck. I'm stuck in a room in Los Angeles. I don't know what to do. I know I need to find Snake, but I think he left in a helicopter. Tell me what to do next. Zach? Colonel?
I mean, honestly, so it's interesting that you bring up Raiden, because Metal Gear Solid is one of my favorite series of all time. However, it wasn't until Metal Gear Solid 2 that I actually fell in love with the franchise. And that is owed a whole bunch to you as Raiden, because I loved the kind of plot twist with that entire game. I loved Raiden's because it was very much so Raiden's game, Metal Gear Solid 2, and just the fact that you stayed with the series in all iterations of Raiden, be it Metal Gear Solid 4, Guns of the Patriots, Rising, the whole shebang. You do a great job as well, and I think that was, honest to God, probably one of my first instance of being a big fan of yours. So it is great to hear that Raiden meant a lot to you as well.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, and then going on to Metal Gear Solid 4, I actually had to audition for the part of Raiden again, because they wanted his voice to mature and drop it down into here and also be able to go into here. And instead of just auditioning me for it, some other, I don't know if it's another casting house, it must have been, had a group of us come in to the old Charlie Chaplin lot, which then became A&M, which was a record lot. And then, oh gosh, the Muppets. He did Kermit the Frog, he voiced him. Jim Henson.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And Miss Piggy, let's not leave her out. So suddenly I'm on that lot auditioning for this, and I go, this character seems vaguely familiar, and but it was not named Raiden. It was just this generic character, and there were two tables in front of me, Americans to the right, Japanese to the left. They even had Skype, so there was a video camera on me and others watching me and talking to one another. And it wasn't until I left and spoke to my agent later that she said, do you know you just auditioned for? I said, what? She goes, Raiden. I'm like, what? They could have told me. And then it went back to the original casting, and thank God I got it. Because of course that led to Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance, which was a stellar game for Raiden. And I got to say,
one of the best hack and slash games of all time. Hands.
Yes. And being able to say things like, now it's time for Jack to let her rip. Jack the Ripper, which is kind of cool. Going back into the old killer Jack the Ripper, into the smoky or foggy streets of London. And I'm an Anglophile, so I like that connection. But I found him to be more of a hero than a villain, of course, except he had to do these heroic deeds of villainy in a way. Not something that any normal superhero like Spider-Man might do, you know, or Deadpool.
Definitely more of an anti-hero, though, of course, Deadpool, pretty much a trademark anti-hero character.
Definitely.
But so was Raiden one of your probably first big voiceover roles, or did that kind of happen earlier or later?
Well, the big voiceover roles for me happened probably before you were aware of my work, and it was the animated stuff.
Okay.
It was doing the Timon and Pumbaa spinoff, Fantastic Four, Johnny Quest, guesting on Animaniacs, Woody Woodpecker. A lot of animation was popping at the time. Billy and Mandy, Grim and Evil. And then it was, like I said, this building of the video game world where, yes, suddenly I'm this original character as opposed to, one of the trademark characters that I spoke about before. And then Raiden became me, or I became Raiden. And then somewhere along the way, Kingdom Hearts came together, and I started playing this character who'd never been around before named Axel. And yes, to anyone out there, I've got it memorized. I certainly have it memorized. And I'm so flattered that Zach would have me here today to see all of you.
You cannot imagine when, and again, we said this earlier before we started recording, but I want this on recording as well. Tabitha Whitelaw, thank you so much for helping make this happen, make a personal dream of mine come true, and also getting Quinton Flynn on Visioncon Live, Episode 8, which, speaking of which, everybody, if you haven't already, go ahead and say thank you, Tabitha. We're going to give her a round of applause.
Yes, definitely.
And also, while you're in the chat, I have my very lovely and courageous, strong, whatever adjective you want to use, coworker and friend Marissa Pence was so kindly put a lot of links that we're going to touch on later in the interview regarding Quinton Flynn, but you all have access to those links in the chat right now, or if you're watching on YouTube right now, once it's been recorded and uploaded, it's going to be right down there in the description, but we'll get to those in a sec. But next I wanted to talk about, so video games, you're a household name. But a lot of people also that are watching right now, again, either on Facebook Live or on YouTube, know you for your anime and cartoon work as well. And so I kind of wanted to touch on a couple of them real quick. The first one, of course, to no surprise to both anyone watching, again, Facebook or YouTube, if you know me, you know Naruto's my favorite thing of all time. And so you voiced his mentor, his father figure, Iruka Sensei. How did you get that role? Did you kind of know anything about, Naruto, be it from the manga or anything like that before auditioning? Or is it just kind of another audition that just turned into a very powerful character?
You said it best. It was another audition that turned into a powerful character. And I didn't have a clue at the time. Didn't know anything. I didn't know the backstory. I just had what's called, we were given sides. That's what they call them. It's usually a picture of the character and a breakdown, and then some dialogue. And I just kind of went for it with the director. And the director at the time said, oh, try it this way, try it that way. Oh, I like where you pitched him right there. And suddenly I was in a series where I was saying things like, Naruto, if you're good, I'll take you out for some ramen. And if you're not good, I'll scream at you like this, Naruto! And I had no idea when I was doing him that he would become a mentor and a father figure for Naruto. And many fans in the last number of years have come to me and said as much. And they said, he's meant so much and you've meant so much to us. I can't thank you enough. So I'm honored. I'm grateful.
I gotta tell you, and this is a slight spoiler for everyone, but I mean, Naruto's been out for a long time, so if you're worried about any Naruto spoilers, if you're watching live on YouTube, maybe fast forward like 30 seconds. Anybody watching the live chat right now, forgive me. In Naruto, the last movie, when Naruto asks, actually no, it wasn't in Naruto the last, it was near the end of Naruto, when he asked Iruka Sensei to be like the father at his wedding, tears, Quinton. I was just bawling tears when you did that. And so I would say, Iruka, definitely a huge influence, a big, very impactful to everybody, and a very serious character who also knows, when to have some levity. Now, I want to go to a different character who's the exact opposite, who's seldom serious, but
Yes.
very often the comedy relief that we need in a show that often is pretty grim. And I, of course, am talking about Cone from Bleach.
Of course, Cone.
So was that similar to Iruka? And did one kind of behead or not behead, rather, betest the other?
That's powerful.
Which what I mean is, cartoons and anime, while there are a lot of similarities, there are also plenty of differences as well. So kind of what was your first kind of instance of getting into anime voice acting? And then kind of what about Cone? Kind of how was that job kind of different than some of the others? And was it as fun as you sound like you're having, or was it just another voice?
No, very fun. I mean, again, I love doing comedy and I like comic relief, and he is the comic relief in that series. The fact that he's this pervy little plushie running around, and everyone treats him just like he's normal. He's the only animated plushie. He's a little lion, and his bark is bigger than his bite for sure. But he really wants to do the right thing. And of course, he's also, I don't know if you'd consider him like a horny teenager or what, but he can't get enough of Rukia, some of the ladies. He's just like, come on, Rukia, I need you, I love you. Get out of here, I'm gonna do this, I can do this. And then and he gets, stuffed into the closet or has the stuffing beat out of him. But somehow he still comes around, and it was a challenge because there were times I would have to get certain words into a certain set amount of time for him. And each episode, it was different. The opening was always different. It was never the same. And I'm blanking right now on I just remember Golden, like Golden.
Yeah.
If you told me the line, I could do it. But there would be like sometimes 2 seconds to do it, 1.5 seconds to do it, 1.8 seconds to do it. I mean, so it's a combination of rhythm and acting. It's musicality for dubbing. And that's the similarities between him and Iruka are that I'm dubbing an animated series into English. So the performance has to be there. The lip flaps have to match. And again, it's musical in terms of rhythm, but it has to be real and believable for as much as it can be in that kind of a fantasy series. So I loved him. I had a ball. And I don't remember auditioning, although I did. I just remember loads of time playing him. Yeah.
So you getting into anime, did you, being such a prolific voice actor in like cartoons, like the ones you listed, Johnny Quest, Spider-Man, thing, did that kind of help get you into anime, or was that a whole other beast that you had to tackle, kind of similarly to how you tackled all these other art forms?
Yeah, it was different because in original animation we record and they animate to us, and we usually work in a group. Whereas in anime, we work alone to picture. I'm watching the images pass by me with headphones on. The director's in the booth, usually to my left, sometimes to my right, and I'll hear a series of beeps. 1, 2, 3, beep, 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 and then I have to go and make it work. And one of the directors, whether it be Susie or Mary Elizabeth, or Jeff Nimoy, when Jeff and I used to work together on Digimon Data Squad, in which I played Marcus Damon. There was another anime series Jeff and I did together where I played Dr. Riddles, and that was Zatch Bell. And he and I had a ball. And actually, because of our relationship, I then first started going to conventions like 15 years ago.
So,
but to follow up,
yeah,
I got into anime because the director of a company called Studiopolis, Jamie Simone, he and I had worked on an animated series, 1 or 2 in the past. So he had, had me in to audition for roles, and just boom, I popped the one, boom, I popped the other. And similarly with those other 2 series I just mentioned. So for a number of years there, I'd be in and out and seeing Jamie quite often. So I have him to thank for a lot of this, as well as Jeff.
So with all of these roles that you've done, and like I said earlier in the interview, I mean, you were easily one of the most popular, recognizable voice actors, whatever adjective you want to use, around. But it can't have always been that easy. So my next question is, was it always that easy? And if it wasn't, kind of how did you kind of get through it? I mean, obviously, rejections suck for everyone, but in an industry that rejection is so prevalent, I mean, it must take a toll on the mental health. So kind of what do you do when the going gets more rough than usual that kind of keeps you the positive Quinton Flynn we all know and love?
What do I do, Zach? What do I do? I start to lose my mind, and I need my blue blankie. Where's my blue blankie? Oh, under my blue blankie.
A showman.
And I look for my monster in Young Frankenstein. You can find me there, or in the producers, and everything's good. Everything's fine as long as I keep it together, just like Gene Wilder would. I go to my happy place.
Ladies and gentlemen.
So
that was great.
How's that for a Wilder impression and dodging the question at the same time?
Knocked it out of the park.
So there you go. There's a little truth to that in terms of being fearful and insecure that, how am I going to get by? What's coming up next? What am I going to do? Gosh, if I spend too much in my head alone, that's a dangerous neighborhood to be in by myself. It's like going into the forest. You get too far in, you don't know how to get out. So I have a lot of friends that I keep in touch with, and it's interesting you bring up mental health because many times over the years I've suffered clinical depression, generalized anxiety disorder, and had to have that treated biochemically and also with the help of good therapists. And I'm also in some 12-step recovery groups for other things. And I have found it has made my life so much better. We all help one another out. And so if anyone out there is suffering in any capacity, whether it's some form of addiction or a mental or emotional disorder, I would definitely encourage you to seek help now more than ever, because we have online access. You're just fingertips away from reaching out and connecting with someone or making a phone call. And I've had a lot of Zoom meetings since we've been in this pandemic and met a lot of wonderful people, not only here, but all over the world. There is a silver lining to what's going down. And, we help one another. Nobody is terminally unique, although we are all unique in our essence and our spirit. And I believe we are these unique spiritual beings having this human experience.
And absolutely, I mean, you said it best yourself, but I will say a big reason why we started this show, Visioncon Live, is because, I mean, I don't need to tell all of you guys, in the chat or on YouTube, the world kind of sucks right now. Obviously, there's glimmers of, happiness. It's nice to, have a little bit more downtime, if you're not, of course, an essential worker. But, we've definitely had brighter times. And so we kind of wanted to start this show just, to bring some joy to you guys, both as the guests and those watching at home. So we hope, from the bottom of our hearts from Visioncon, not just me, but everyone on Visioncon, we hope we've succeeded at least a little bit with that. But, another thing I kind of touched on that I want to kind of expand on, rejection is a big part of the industry. And I do also know that a lot of people watching these, because we've done, a lot of the series has focused on voice actors. And I know based on, prior interviews that rejection is a big part of that. So how do you, Quinton Flynn, again, one of the most popular voice actors around, have dealt with rejection in the past? And for anybody watching who's wanting to get into voice acting, kind of how would they best deal with rejection from your advice?
All I can hear is how many times you've said the word rejection.
Rejection. That's the focal point.
Rejection. Well, I tend to look at it as selection and not rejection.
Okay.
I've had to, because it's a very business is ever changing. It's mercurial in terms of who they like, when they like them, what they want. It's kind of hurry up and get me so and so, or have you heard about so and so, or who's so and so, or get me a young so and so. You know, Sometimes they don't even know what they want. So how do I deal with it? I just cope the best I can. I think, like many other actors, we I don't know that I'd say I have a tough skin, because I think we're all very vulnerable and sensitive types. I have a thin skin. There's many roles that I would like that I haven't gotten, but I will say the roles I've gotten have been just right and perfect for me. Um, so I do my best to kind of hold it together and look at what's really important at the end of the day. And at the end of my life, am I going to be lying there on my deathbed if they said, you have 10 minutes to live? uh, what are your greatest memories and what are your greatest regrets? I don't think I'll be saying, oh, I just couldn't get over not getting SpongeBob SquarePants. I don't think that's gonna happen. But so yeah, it's a numbers game. You know, if you're gonna get into this business, know that I guess I'll use the R word. Sure, there is rejection.
I should have said, for the folks at home watching, take a shot every time I said the word.
In that, they may. Yeah, right. Yes, we'd have some hammered folks out there. Let me tell you another thing about rejection. Hold on, this is not actually Aquafina. I'm not endorsed. This is a big bottle of vodka.
Hey, it's
So
Visioncon Live. We're here to party.
That's how we take our shots. Hold on. Give me two minutes.
All the time you need.
Oh, I've had too much Sunnis, and you guys look great. So yeah. Anyway, you just got to know coming into it that look, if you're not a trust fund baby, if you're not a trustafarian, and if you're not sitting on piles of money and you can just kind of roll around and do nothing, you may have to have a job or two jobs and do whatever you need to do to make ends meet while you're creating your vision and going for your career. I'm still doing it. I'm still learning. I'm still upgrading. I'm still learning more about tech. And I just keep doing it. And sometimes I wonder why I do it. And sometimes I think I should be doing something else. But it is what I do well. It's what I do best. It's what I know the most about. So I just keep doing it. So I'll look at the camera. If this is what you want, if you want insecurity in your life, if you want doubt, then definitely become an actor.
So to make sure, if we haven't scared anyone watching at home, if they are considering to get into voice acting, and you kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, it is definitely a more competitive kind of field to get in, because, as each technological advance happens, I won't say it's easier to get into voice acting, because, it's still a very hard job, to become successful in and even get into. But if this is something that they definitely want to get into, what's some advice that you would give the folks at home that are like, for sure, this is what they want to do with their lives? Now, Quinton Flynn, what can you tell them to maybe try to help them in their journey?
Well, I can tell you what my path has been, and most other actors worth their salt, I think, would say it's all about acting. So always be acting, and whether that means taking an acting course or joining an improv group, sketch comedy, if that's your thing. That was my thing. I've done both dramatic as well as comedy, musicals. That all helps. Because ultimately, once you have learned the tools of how to work behind a microphone, which would be a good idea to do, you'll need to be able to take direction quickly from directors and make changes like that. They'll work with you, but you have to, kind of know your craft. And for me, that was doing workshops, animation workshops, character development, I should say, commercial workshops. And if you have any questions about it, go to, and this is online, I want to be a voiceactor.com. It's not a joke. It's actually true. A peer of mine, a good guy named D. Bradley Baker, put it together for folks who would ask the question that you just asked me. How would I get into it? What can I do? because there are people who didn't follow my track. There are people who were actors that then became voice actors, who had done maybe some TV or film. There were some radio jocks who got into voice acting on the other side of their radio gig, that kind of thing. Have to change my voice. Gosh, I can't believe they don't think I sound natural. That's so strange. Also, if someone tells you you have a great voice, that's wonderful, but it takes more than having a great voice to be a voice actor. Yeah, I did a session the other day I can't speak about. However, I can tell you I was reprising a role with a main character, and even with that, I still had to have a sound clip or two played for me and the director so he would know what he was dealing with. And for me, it was easier to get into them. And I was then requested and expected to do 2 new characters on the spot.
Wow.
So you kind of have to have, some tools in your cachet, if you will, to be able to just kind of rock with it, and play. So that's what I would encourage people to do. Educate and play.
I mean, is that a big way, kind of how your process works? Because in all of your works, even if you're playing serious characters, it does sound like you're having a lot of fun. And would you say that's kind of the essence of every good voice actor, is they have to enjoy what they're doing and not just see it as just like a 9-to-5 or a traditional job?
Yeah, because it's just not a 9-to-5 or a traditional job. We have to be available 5 days a week to audition. Then we audition, and we don't know if or when we're going to get a role. And here's a big thing: you don't hear about not getting a role. So you can have loads of auditions, but you only hear if you get the job. So more often than not, you hear nothing. So it's living in uncertainty.
Oh, that's wild.
Yeah. In fact, I had an on-camera commercial audition a week ago, and then it turned into a callback on Friday, and I set it up and had to shoot it from here in my home, and it was a Zoom patch with like 5 people. Mm-hmm. And I haven't heard back, so I'm kind of on pins and needles at this moment. It's something I'm really hoping for, and I just have to keep reminding myself, if it's meant to be, it'll be. But there's another voice going, but it should be me. It should be me. It should be me. It's me.
An inner Gollum kind of dialogue.
Yes, precious.
Well, we've been talking about some pretty, we've been peppering in a little bit of some darker, kind of more, serious conversation in this interview. So before we go into the plug zone and then viewers' comments, I did want to give you the chance to talk about one fun thing that you were telling me about a couple days ago, and that's the story of you imitating Paul McCartney.
Oh, yeah. A friend of mine called me a number of years ago from Cleveland, Ohio. He's a manager who's managed Joe Walsh from the Eagles, Ian Hunter, who was in Mott the Hoople. He also penned Cleveland Rocks, which it was an iconic song that went on to be the theme for the Drew Carey Show. The Drew Carey Show coming up next. Quinton Flynn. See how I brought that all together?
Yeah.
And so David called me and he said, I'm going to be on the radio show with Brian and Joe, which was WMMS in Cleveland. And they were friends of mine. I'd been on the show before. And he said, I want to tell them that I've got Paul's personal number. And McCartney was on tour at the time, and he was in Los Angeles, which is where I am. So that was 3 hours behind Cleveland. And he said, so we're going to call you at 5:30 in the morning. So they called, and I was ready, and I picked up the phone, groggily, because I'll give you, there's 2 Paul McCartney voices. There's the old Paul McCartney's here, the thing is, when John and I played together, we just go nose to nose with our guitars, looking into each other's eyes. If there was a problem, he'd say, hey, it's just me. So that's Paul 1. But Sir Paul McCartney, the way he is these days, he's got more of a crackly voice, if you've heard him, in his interviews. So the phone rings, I pick it up. It's like, hello. Yeah, no, David, great to hear you. It's 5:30. Oh, right. No, yeah, I can say hi to the lads. Hello, Brian. Hi, Joe. It's great to meet you. It's Paul. Anyway, went on like that for a bit. They were blown away, so much so that they were carrying on with their episode, and they got a call from McCartney's management because someone was in Cleveland, heard this, and was outraged that they had Paul's personal number and woke him up. And so my buddy had to cop to the fact that he's like, that really wasn't Paul. That was your friend Quinton Flynn. And they're like, oh, we got punked.
We got punked. Suddenly I sound like Gilbert Godfrey.
Man, just like one after the other, just like seamlessly. It's crazy.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Well, ladies and gentlemen, right now, if you haven't already, I know plenty of you have already asked questions or wrote things that you want to tell Quinton Flynn. We'll get to those in a minute, but if you haven't already, now is your chance to do so in the live chat because, ladies and gentlemen, we're in the plug zone.
We're in the plug zone. In the plug zone. In the plug zone. Zach and Quinton Flynn on Visioncon. You're in the plug zone. So get on, get in.
I really need a plug zone theme. But Quinton Flynn, now is your chance to plug, promote, advertise, whatever verb you want to use, anything you want to the folks watching at home.
Well, follow me on Instagram, please, and tell your friends and neighbors. That's at Quinton Flynn 1. Follow me on Twitter. That's at Quinton Flynn. And go to my Facebook fan page, which is Quinton Flynn. And also, if you want a video shout out, of which I give a fully invested piece to fans who do write and request it I'm on Cameo. And I have a lot of fun with that. And you'll dig it too. So there's an opportunity for me to do a personalized video for you. I don't have an online store set up. But if you're wanting to purchase 8x10s of some of my characters, that's probably something we could sort out. General pricing would be the same as it is at conventions, and I would say try contacting me through Instagram. That's the easiest way.
And for those of you who missed it beforehand or just need a reminder, all of those links that Quinton just talked about are in the live chat pinned by the one and only Marissa Pence. So
thank you, Marissa.
Or if you're watching on YouTube, it's in the description below. So ladies and gentlemen, we're out of the plug zone and we're going to viewers' comments and questions. So give me 1 sec to scroll all the way up.
Dude, you're a pro. I'm loving the show.
Oh my gosh, you have no idea how much that means to me. And before I start crying, I'm going to read some stuff.
Cool.
All right, so okay, so Aaron is psyched that he's finally gotten a chance to meet you. What's going on, Aaron? All right. Oh, and then Marissa. Marissa, you're always the wind beneath my sails. Marissa provided a very easy way to look up the questions. Thank you, dear.
Good.
So Aaron wanted to know,
Marissa.
if a Digimon Data Squad crossover with Marvel, would Marcus and Agumon want to team up with Avengers or Guardians of the Galaxy, and why?
That's a great idea. I wish you were writing for them and casting. Yeah, Marcus and Agumon, that would be brilliant. And why wouldn't they want to get together and hook up and rock this world? Yeah, they could use the two of them. They certainly could.
But do you think they would team up with the Avengers or the Guardians of the Galaxy?
Oh, right.
Yes.
Guardians of the Galaxy.
Guardians of the Galaxy? Any reason why, or just because they're kind of the more fun?
It's a perfect fit, because it's more of it's an odd bunch. That's what I would say. The Avengers are kind of your classic traditional Marvel types. I'm happy to say I've played the characters I mentioned before: Human Torch, Spidey, Venom. Who else did I play? Malekith the Accursed, Arcade, Anvil. So yeah, it just makes sense that Marcus, Damon, and Agumon would go to Galaxy. They just would, because if you've seen them before, you would know visually how they pair up, and they just would stick out like sore thumbs with the Avengers.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point.
Yeah.
The next question, Marissa actually wrote in and had a pretty interesting one. She said, Quinton, I have kind of a silly question. A friend and I were talking about when people imitate someone close to them, it's never how they actually sound. For instance, when she imitates her mom, it's definitely not her actual voice. So she's asking, she wants to know, who in your life do you do kind of an imitation of their voice that's like clearly not actually their voice, but it's kind of a fun imitation?
Excellent question. Yeah, I've found that when I do imitations, the ones that are within my vocal range sound the best. And if they're not, if they're outside of it, then if they're a caricature, I can turn them into that. Um, I can't think of any that I'm not happy doing. If there's anything I do that I don't do well, I tend not to do it. Uh, but I do like to do impressions on the spot. So sometimes I will do impressions of people at conventions.
I mean, lately I was just doing Nicolas Cage the other day because I thought he was so much fun. Why, I was Ghost Rider. Why don't you bring me up? Why am I not in Marvel's universe with the Avengers? Come on! And that segues into Doc Brown from Back to the Future, which is Christopher Lloyd. And right, Marty, you gotta, why don't we watch Gardens of the Galaxy and add Marcus Damon and Agumon?
So I don't know how to answer your question. Mine are as close to being on as possible. But I will say that if they're not, they can turn into characters that you can use for voice acting. I've done that before. Or they can turn into characters for you that are unique to you. For example, there's a guy I know that you wouldn't know. But I just, I like doing his voice because, he's kind of a crazy guy. He's kind of a nut, be like, Zach, thanks a lot. I appreciate you having me here. But, truth of the matter is I didn't bring my guitar. And if I would have known there were people out there who wanted to see me, I'd play a song for them. Sorry, we didn't do it. Now, I shan't mention his name, but that is a fun character.
I mean, you have fun with it, that's for sure. A kind of a more deeper one that we want to go to. Tabitha wrote in and asked, do you have a character that's left kind of an emotional impact on your life? I mean, obviously you've voiced so many characters within the years, but are there any that have just like really kind of stuck with you over the years?
I don't know. That's a tough one, really. They all have sweet spots for me. I just have different experiences I remember that were wonderful for me. Like, I'll step away from characters and get back to,
Sure.
I did a commercial job with the late, great James Coburn. And he is a fantastic actor. He was in The Magnificent Seven. He was in like Flint. He was in all kinds of movies. He was like a Steve McQueen. And I know I'm going back for some of the audience here, but this guy was so warm and so charming. And I sat down next to him in the booth and I knew I was with a legend. And I made the guy laugh. And he had this really warm laugh and he was very kind to me. And I admired him as much as you've said you admire me. So it was just that kind of thing where you're like, I can't believe I'm having a wonderful conversation with somebody I thought I would never meet. So that really stays in my heart, those times with him. And I will say, of all the characters I've done, I've really grown fond of this character named Jin the Virtuoso, who's in League of Legends, because he is a theatrical man who sees art in death. And I found that villains don't really know they're villains. So that was a role I auditioned for and I got called back for when I was in England. So I had to re-audition for it at my cousin's home. And it's what I really wanted. And that was one of those spots that I ended up getting. And there's going to be more of that in the future. So yeah, I just have a really warm spot for Jin, and also because I was able to ad-lib and improvise. And so there are some lines in there that were mine.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I did want to touch on one real quick. Like, this is a cute one. So Susan wrote in and said, so my 5-year-old is sitting here with me, and he wants you to know that he says hi.
Hi.
He met you at what is that? Yeah, Matsuricon last year.
Matsuricon?
Did I pronounce that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, and he's kind of been talking about you since then.
Aw, well, thank you. That's wonderful.
And if I did one of the most beloved characters I have done from Nickelodeon that I just remembered, it would be Sheldon from My Life as a Teenage Robot. And Sheldon says, hello, and I love you, and I hope you're good. And maybe if you can, tell Jenny I love her and your mom.
That was adorable. Jared wrote in and asked, do you ever get stuck in a voice and have difficulty turning it off? or do you come out when you aren't, or does it come out when you aren't expecting them to come out? So, you have your bass voice, but after you've been doing one for a while, do you have a problem kind of getting out of it, or do they randomly just kind of, whether it be depending on your mood or just kind of randomly, do they come out without you intending them?
They tend not to pop out. If I'm just riffing with somebody comedically, then I might slide into a character or an impression or a voice or someone that I'm doing, because I have fun doing impressions of people I know, which goes back to the earlier question. And if someone knows them, then they appreciate it. I will say that when I'm over visiting family in England or Ireland, the longer I'm there, the more I will pick up their phrasing and colloquialisms. And so sometimes the melodic nature of how they speak will rub off on me. So it's not something that's intentional, but sometimes I'll do it because in my mind, I'm thinking, well, if I speak more like them, they'll understand me better, as opposed to me just giving it to them straight Yankee talk.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry to say, that's all the time we have for today. So, ladies and gentlemen, this has been episode 8 of Visioncon Live. Quinton Flynn, is there anything you want to end off on before we wrap things up?
Well, I'd like to say that Sir Henry Cooldown, some of you know him as Sir Henry Mother Effer, is in the trio of games of No More Heroes, and the third installment, No More Heroes 3, will be coming out sometime this year, 2020. Wait for it to drop, but make sure you jump on it while it's hot.
Make sure you guys watch out for that. And ladies and gentlemen, this has been episode 8 of Visioncon Live. Thank you so much for tuning in to watch me and my special guest, Quinton Flynn. Make sure to tune in tomorrow at 2 p.m. Central Time for my interview with Christopher Swindle, voice of Alfred from Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, Sully from Kingdom Hearts 3, Motobo from Baki, just to name a few. And then, of course, next Monday at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time for the one and only Spike Spencer, who's Shinji from Evangelion, Inojin from Boruto, Hinataro from Bleach, and plenty more.
Both great guys.
Oh my gosh, I'm super psyched. And thank you so much again, Quinton, for joining us. And to everybody else, we'll see you next time, guys.